Psycho-Cybernetics in 5 Steps. One of the most influential books in personal development, certainly for me and many that I've spoken with, is Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. And so today I would like to talk about our self-image, and I would like to relate this over to how we see ourselves in our mind's eye, ideally, our higher self. And recognize that to be really fulfilled in life, we want to realize this higher self. I believe it's our destiny to realize ourselves the way we see ourselves in our imagination ideally. I'm talking about personal life, career, business, relationships, how you want to live, where you want to live, what you want to do. Now, this is stimulated by intuition because you can let go of this 5-sensory experience for a moment and go into your imagination and suspend all disbelief and recognize that there's no limitations in mind. How do you see yourself ideally? Now, we can call that the ideal self-image. And recognize that all we have to do is commit to that. Say, I am that person now, and everything begins to change. I want to relate this over to the 5 steps he discusses in the book. But before we get into it, let's reflect upon this quote here. He says, "The answers exist now in much the same way when we set out to find a new idea or the question to a problem. We must assume that the answer exists already, somewhere, and set out to find it." See, when a person sees themselves living the ideal life in their imagination, perhaps some doubt starts showing up a little bit after. Person says, how? I look around and I don't seem to have the relationships, the resources, etc. What we're called upon here when it comes to working with this information is to practice faith. If you look at anybody who has achieved anything, radically so, at the time when they had this idea of being, I wouldn't say someone else, but who they truly are, because that's what we're talking about here, being who you truly are. And you can see that representation of yourself in your imagination. When they saw that, they fell in love with that image. They realized that one day that would be the reality. Now, they didn't know how it was going to happen. Maybe you know a couple steps, maybe you know a bunch of things, or maybe you know a lot of things, but we can completely let go of the how. Let's work with this 5-step process here. So, take a moment and really ask yourself, how do you want to live? Look at the different areas of your life. Look at your relationships, your business, your career, your personal life, your environments. Ask yourself the question, how do I really want to live? What would it look like if it was true? Who would I be with? What would I be experiencing? How would I be experiencing myself, and how would others be experiencing me? How would I be in my environments? Would I feel comfortable in my environments? Would I feel I am at home in this environment that I see in my imagination? Now, if you take a moment and really visualize that and imagine that as the reality, we have a built-in success mechanism that aligns us over to that vision, automatically so, from that moment of commitment. Now, this is a beautiful thing. So that's step number 1 here. He says, your built-in success mechanism must have a goal or target, and so we have conceived in our mind's eye the vision of how we truly are in all its vivid accuracy. He says this goal or target must be conceived of as already in existence now, either in actual or potential form. So if you look around and you say, well, I don't know how this is going to happen. I don't have the relationships, the resources, the this, the that. Doesn't matter. Because the answer exists. Let's go back to the quote here. He says, the answer exists now in much the same way when we set out to find a new idea, it's in imagination and it expresses, it's revealed on the journey. We'll talk about how so as we progress. He says, the answer to a problem, we must assume that the answer already exists. So that's a key thing. We must assume that that vision actually exists now and we are that person now, and that the answers or the hows or the ways will reveal themselves on the journey. Now I'll reflect back on my experience. When I look back at my life and the goals and the visions that I've achieved, and I reflect deeply upon the thousands of conversations I've had with others who have achieved their goals, upon connecting the dots, looking backwards, they see how the different steps were taken, the different relationships showed up, the different life experiences, conversations, whatever, started to show up upon commitment because we're oriented by that vision. Number 2, he says, the automatic mechanism is teleological. That is, operates or must be oriented to end results or goals. So that's where we're going. If you look around and you ask, I've had many of these conversations lately, it seems like more so today than ever before, people really want to live how they truly want to live, that which they saw in their imagination, which is their higher self. They want to become that now. They recognize that they are that now. And changes are happening in their lives. Switching careers, relationships are changing, environments are changing. Because people really want to be how they truly are. See, what I've realized upon working with Psycho-Cybernetics is this is about becoming who you really are, and you can see in your imagination how you really are. And that's when we are really happy on the journey to realizing who we truly are. And we can see it in our imagination in all its vivid accuracy. We can feel it in our imagination in all its vivid accuracy. You can even have a conversation with someone or yourself and say, this is how I truly want to be, and describe that person, maybe even write it down, and say, I commit to that. That's who I am now. And so he says the automatic mechanism is teleological, that it operates or must be oriented to end results, goals, who you truly are. He says, do not be discouraged because the means whereby may not be apparent. That's the key. May not be apparent. Upon realizing goals, visions, definite chief aims again and again and again, you'll recognize that the relationships, the resources, everything you need is there right now. But if you don't see it now, that's totally fine. Nothing wrong with that. I am that person now, and it unfolds, hunches, inspiration, things change on their own. He says, it is a function of the automatic mechanism to supply the means when you supply the goal. So that's the work of the subconscious mind, the power of the subconscious mind to make all those things happen that we might not consciously know how. He says, think in terms of the end result, and the means whereby will often take care of themselves. Recognize that you are that person now. Feel that sense of calm that you are that person now. You'll feel a sense of peace, a sense of calm, a sense of satisfaction that you are that person now. And the next step reveals itself if there's a next step to take. You'll know. Intuition. Number 3, he says, do not be afraid of making mistakes or of temporary failures. All servo mechanisms achieve a goal by what he refers to as negative feedback, but as we've been discussing, we're going to look at this as feedback or optimization data, parts that make up the whole that leads to the destination, some way, somehow. It's important to not shame or condemn ourselves during this experience, otherwise we will add unnecessary complexity and convoluted behaviors will be expressed, making this far more difficult than it has to be. I've been there many times, and I can assure you now, I let it go. And if you find that there are challenging beliefs that are brought to the surface, self-image-based things in relation to the past self-image, then I recommend doing the subconscious mind work. and asking yourself, is this really true? Is this really how I am in this vision? And if you're a student of my subconscious mind program, then you know that I go through 4 different ways: self-talk, revision, subconscious mind audios or autosuggestion audios, and environment. I was in Los Angeles last week, had a conversation with one of my friends and business partner, and he mentioned to me that environment was the number one thing that he did to grow his business to a 7-figure level. He says he would simply find others that already achieved the success that he desired, and he would just hang out with them. I said, that's a beautiful thing. He's like, yeah, that's all I do. I just go and hang out with the people that have the success, and then I become like that. You see, when he's having conversations with people about, let's say, negative feedback or making mistakes, they help him see things for how they truly are. They might say, listen, you're not making a mistake. That's part of the journey. We've all gone through that. See, you look at anybody that has produced success, let's say in the entrepreneurial space, career space, and they have gotten to a position of leadership, mentorship, or trusted advisor to their peers. You have a conversation with them and they say, listen, I've been through that experience before, or a similar experience. And I've had many of these conversations myself with my mentors who had said the same thing. They said, listen, you're overthinking this. Let it go. This is part of the journey to realizing the vision. And they help me see whatever it is as an opportunity. As I brought this up a handful of weeks ago when we discussed the magic of fear, how I see fear as an opportunity to reveal what's going on within myself, the programming, so I could make peace with it. And at that time, Paul was my mentor for public speaking. I had a genuine anxiety leading up to doing the events. I'll put a link in the description to that video. On Saturdays and Sundays, that would build up. It would start to build up on Monday and would build up Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The anxiety would build up. And he'd say, listen, you already know the stuff that you're talking about. We're giving you something where you just follow our script, but even better than that, improvise, do it your way. This is just a guide. Allow your authenticity to flow. Now, that made a lot of sense to me, and then I noticed the anxiety would go down. And upon reflection, I realized it was always this way. The servo mechanism that we have inside of us is actually orienting us towards the goal. And if we identify with certain thinking patterns that are not true to how we really are, we can let them go. Number 4, skill. Learning of any kind is accomplished by trial and error, mentally correcting aim after an error until a successful motion, movement, or performance has been achieved. After that, further learning and continued success is accomplished by forgetting the past errors and remembering the successful response so that it can be imitated. Now, in our Neville Goddard information, this is referred to as repentance, radical change of mind. Forgetting it completely and saying, I am this person now. Let's look at all the ways that the performance was ideal. Let's talk about all the ways the performance was ideal. Look at the degree of congruence that we're representing in regards to how we truly are, our self-image, our higher self right now, and focus on that. Allow that to be assimilated into the subconscious mind, because that's the way it really is. You really are that person, and it is reflecting. The outer is reflecting the inner. Now, number 5, he says, you must learn to trust your creative mechanism to do its work and not jam it up by becoming too concerned or too anxious as to whether it will work or not, or by attempting to force it by too much conscious effort. This is about allowing, letting. He even says it here. He says, you must let it work rather than make it work. Now, that's a beautiful thing. Let it work. The power of the subconscious mind works through allowing. We suggest, I am this person now. Not done from a place of force, rather from a place of affirmation. Reality is an expression of the affirmation in mind, that which we say, I am too. And we allow it to express. Whatever it is that you desire. Maybe it's a certain skill. Maybe it's a certain relationship. Maybe it's a career, a business goal, whatever it is. See yourself in your imagination as the person right now. If you would like to, which, because I've done this many times, is I actually sometimes have a conversation with my higher self and say, listen, what are you like? Who are you with? How do you think? What are your beliefs? And take some notes, write it down. Got a journal, pad and paper? That's who you are. Say, I am those attributes now. That's who I am now. I'm able to see it more so upon reflection of my experiences. So, for example, have this conversation with yourself, your higher self, who you truly are. You write down these attributes. I drive this car. I live here. I have relationships that are harmonious. I am surrounded by people that inspire me. I inspire others. People love having conversations with me. I love having conversations with them. We have a great time. We're in flow. Write those things down. And suggest it to yourselves. Say, I realize I am that person now. I'm confident now. I'm expressive now. I'm able to see it more so in every conversation, in every interaction I have with another person. I'm seeing it more so. Upon reflection of these experiences, encourage what you saw. Say, wow, look at this. I am actually a lot more confident. I'm a lot more expressive. People seem engaged a lot more than ever before. This is actually happening. The outer is reflecting the inner to a higher degree. One of the most effective ways to make all those things automatic is to recognize that you are that person now. And that upon reflection of experiences that you have in relation to your skill. For example, as many of you know, I took up snowboarding the last couple years. I would apply this because I saw people, they were snowboarding a certain way, they were going down the slope. I said, I am that now. And what I noticed is that I would always engage in reflection at the end of the performances. And I would never say, oh, I'm not good enough because I didn't do this, or it's going to take me so long, because all of that is just saying I am to all of that. That's not true. How I am is how I see myself now in my imagination. And so I look at the experiences and I say, wow, I'm faster today. I can carve a lot smoother today. I actually found that it was easier for me to move around obstacles. Look at this progression. I'm getting really fast. I'm actually progressing faster with this skill than I've done with many other skills in my past. What is it? What's the cause of this? Well, cause is I see myself as that now. And the body is an expression of mine. It reflects, it expresses. Now, this might be a different way of thinking. For whatever the reason may be, if they're too overly identified with inaccurate thinking patterns, they're asking, how is it possible? But other people take a long time to achieve it. What makes me an exception to that? Well, you are an exception to it because you say you are. I am an exception. See, anything we suggest to ourselves expresses. So might as well suggest how we truly are, because if we go to have a conversation with our higher self and say, are you exceptional? Your higher self will say, I am exceptional. Just like everybody's higher self is exceptional. So let's reflect upon this again. He says, the answer exists now in much the same way when we set out to find a new idea or the answer to a problem. We must assume that the answer already exists somewhere and set out to find it. The world of imagination is infinite. We've been discussing this, and we'll continue to discuss this. And what I like to do is I like to have my imagination stimulated with a goal and a vision. See, if I don't know how to get there, if I don't know how the resources are going to show up, the assets are going to happen, the relationships are going to happen, that's great. I love it. Because that's all going to be revealed from the nuances of imagination upon reflection of having the success or the vision realized. We look back at it and say, wow, we connect the dots looking backwards. We developed this skill, we had this conversation, we had that experience, we ended up moving to another country, we ended up creating this event we never thought would happen that translated into the business success. We ended up doing partnerships. We ended up meeting these people that became close friends, business partners. We never saw those things happening, but upon reflection, we realized that it happened. And those are all things that we weren't conscious of, but they were always there. All things exist, but they are revealed from the vision. Same is to be said about a skill a person cultivates. They say, I am this person now. This is how I perform as an athlete. I am that person now. And they maintain true to it while they go about their day-to-day experience by working with the servo mechanism, as he says here. Your built-in success mechanism must have a goal, so we have a goal. Number 2, he says the automatic mechanism is teleological. That is, operates or must be oriented to end results. It's automatically oriented. The subconscious mind is automatically oriented towards the end result, and unnecessary thinking patterns that a person may identify with and think that they are those thinking patterns, we want to let go of those thinking patterns. We want to do the subconscious mind work or switch our attention on the performance improvements, we could say, or how fast you got back up if you fell down. It used to take me 1 or 2 hours to get over rejection in sales. Now, just like that, I just pick up the phone and make the next phone call. Now, these are personal experiences that I have, and I've had this conversation many times with others. The commonalities, they see themselves as the person now. They're not afraid of making mistakes or temporary failures because the servo mechanism is orienting them towards the goal. It's done. The servo mechanism is doing its thing. And all we have to do is, as he says here, let it work rather than make it work. Nothing to do, really, at the end of the day, rather than to allow. See, a person might think, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to think about this, what about that, one step at a time. The servo mechanism. If you fall, you make a mistake, that's fine. Totally fine. That's okay. The shame and condemnation in relation to the mistakes, or what is referred to as temporary failures, is actually creating unnecessary complexity, more stress, more frustration. And the answer and the opportunities and everything that's needed exists now. Like the vision exists now, like you are that person now. Because in imagination, it's all now. Bodies in expression rearranges to reflect with vivid accuracy what we saw in imagination in all its detail through what he says here, number 5. You must learn to trust your creative mechanism, to do its work, and not jam it by becoming too concerned or too anxious as to whether it will work or not. Now, all we got to do every day is maintain the lighthearted flow. Make flow a priority. Recognize that you are on the way to realizing your goal, your vision. You're on your way. Ideas, hunches, inspirations show up. You automatically do things. You're inspired to do things. Do what you really love to do, what you really want to do. Upon connecting the dots, looking backwards, you realize it was in contribution to your goals, your vision. Because when you see yourself in your imagination as the person now, and you have a conversation, if you'd like, with your higher self in imagination, you will see all the things that your higher self does, and those are the things that you genuinely do. You end up enjoying doing those things. It's flow-based. A lot of times it's automatic. And if, as mentioned, there seems to be friction here, those are thinking patterns. No need to shame or condemn ourselves. Simply identify these thinking patterns and say, that's not me. I'm transcendent to these thinking patterns. I can, if I would like to, identify with these thinking patterns, but I no longer desire to identify with these thinking patterns. Thus, we don't create the convoluted behaviors. I also recommend a great supplement to this, the 7-Day Mental Diet by Emmett Fox. I'll put a link in the description to it. Recognizing that the power of the subconscious mind takes care of everything. And what we want to do is allow that to express. And we can feel it. Feeling is the secret. You know when you're in that state, and when you're allowing, when you're one with that vision, feeling is the secret. You feel it. You feel the flow. Notice very little thinking, or hardly any thinking at all, or I noticed this myself. No thinking, only expressing. Now, in the earlier stages, if you brought this up to me, I would have said, there's no way that it could be like this. Well, upon making peace with a lot of thinking patterns which were not truly who I am, that I was identifying with, I realized that it really is this way. And when I have conversations with others, what I like to do is I like to encourage where they're doing this, and they seem to do it more so. We can even encourage the servo mechanism or the subconscious mind expressions, which happen automatically, by encouraging it. Say, when was this true in my life? What Joseph is saying here, let me reflect back on my life here. When was I like this? When did things seem effortless? And it really was true to what he's saying here. And can I experience this more so? Absolutely. If you say that's the way it is, that's how you are now, you will experience it now. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's go ahead and conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. We could say, I recognize that the answer exists now. Who I am in my imagination, my higher self, is now, and allow myself to express to that vision. Body is an expression of mine, moves according to the vision, automatically so. People, environment, circumstance, information show up in harmony in contribution to how I truly am. Upon reflection of my experiences in relation to my vision, my environments, conversations, etc., I recognize that I am more so this person. Through the process, I let go completely of overthinking and allow the intuition within me to guide me to the realization of my vision in a flow-based way. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.